Hello and welcome to Webinar Wednesdays. My name is Ben Lund. I'm the founder of Rise Marketing Group and grateful to be joined with Jill Lehman, who is our SEO lead. Jill, thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, every other week we host a series of free webinars going to all topics of digital marketing. And today we are wrapping up a series of webinars focused on technical SEO. And really grateful that we're jumping into schema for SEO, which is the last topic that we're going to cover on this series under technical SEO. Now, schema is not a new concept for SEO, but it can have some really nice impacts on SEO. And often, for one reason or another, we just see a lot of sites, they're not implementing schema appropriately or just not implementing it at all, which is kind of crazy because it can really help out SEO. And I think a lot of folks are probably just intimidated by schema. It can be definitely very technical in nature. So in this webinar, we are just going to demystify all aspects of schema. So our goal is that anyone who's watching this either right now or in the future is going to really get an understanding of what schema is and how that can impact their business and ultimately influence a ranking. So let's get into agenda right here. Today we are going to cover what schema is, the different types of schema and how it can shape rich results, how to check structured data markup. So once you implement this on your site, how to make sure that it is set up correctly. There's a couple different ways that you can go about it that Jill's going to walk us through, schema.org and Google Rich Snippet, Rich Results tool. Towards the end, we're going to get into how it can impact to SEO. You definitely want to stay around for that because ultimately that's why you really want to implement schema to increase your SEO. And then we're going to get into schema best practices. So let's get into it. So Jill, why don't you share what exactly is schema?
So schema is structured data markup that helps search engines like Google and Bing understand the purpose and content on your pages. Structured data markup is in the form in a coding format. So there's 3 different formats that they use. It's JSON-LD, microdata, and RDFA. If you don't have coding knowledge, it's best to have a web developer help you implement this, as it can get confusing. If you implement it incorrectly, it could actually cause more harm than good to your site. But there's plenty of tools that you can use to help implement this on your site and make sure that the code is properly set up. And there's a few hosting platforms that also have options for automatic schema setup that might already be on your site. So if you're using a web hosting platform like WordPress, you might see that through Yoast on each of the web pages, you have an option to review your schema on there and make adjustments.
Definitely. And I think it's critical. I just want to emphasize a point that you made. It's really important to have a developer oversee this process, whether you are using a third-party plugin or not, because it is very technical. And Jill, it sounds like if you don't really understand coding on a website, you might be doing more harm than good by trying to DIY this. Is that fair?
Yep, that's correct.
Now, how many different types of schema are out there? Can you break down for all the businesses that are listening to this, what types of schema are out there that we should consider?
So there's a lot of different types of schema. On schema.org, which is the site for all of reviewing all the types of schema, there are currently about 806 on there. Any of the pages on your website that you want indexed can contain schema markup, but the type of schema you use may be different on each page. For example, a product page is going to require different schema markup than a blog article. So as is with anything related to SEO, the main purpose of schema is just to provide a clearer understanding to Google of where to place your sites in search results based on how you're able to help a user's query or help provide answers to what customers are searching for or potential users are searching for. They'll be able to understand your schema better based on the type of schema markup so that they understand the main primary focus of your web pages and what you want them to be used for.
Definitely. So it sounds like, 800 plus different types. Any business out there, there's probably going to be at least multiple schema that they should consider, huh?
Yep, there could be a few that you can implement at the same time on a web page. You can see kind of the organization of how schema.org sets up so that you can look at all the different types. So on that left-hand side, you'll see broader types. And then within each of those, there's a lot of options in there for different areas that can be implemented for schema. So if you have products, you can include things like your pricing. You can include things about whether it's in stock or the delivery time. So there's a lot of options, and you may not need to use all of them, but it's best to review the sections. And that site can get a little bit confusing. So same as before, it might be helpful to have a web developer look at it with you.
Definitely. And a good example, businesses out there, there's schema for that, for types of businesses, and then underneath that you can even put in service areas of specific cities, states, or regions that you focus on, or even types of services. And this is kind of like all behind the scenes that all the engines can properly read okay. But let's get into more of the types of schema. So why don't you kind of share high level just some of the types available?
So because there's so many, we wouldn't be able to cover obviously all of them today. But there are a lot of common ones that are used on pretty much any sort of business website that has used schema. So the first one on there, organization. This would be important company information. It could include things like your address or a description of your business. Local business is similar to organization. The difference is that it's more geo-specific information. So you might want to include on specific pages on your website the areas that you serve, so areas in which your business offerings are used. This could be towns and cities that you might want to list out so that search engines know that there are certain regions that would want that information more than others. Next to that is product schema. So that's more information about your product. So this would be on product pages. It can include things like pricing, delivery time, and the availability of your product. You can also include reviews on several different pages on your site. And this could be either product-specific reviews, which would be on the product page, or it could be overall business reviews. So you might want your overall business reviews on specific informational pages as well. FAQ is pretty straightforward. That one's just common questions that users might be searching for that could help them get to the right page on your site. Video, this video schema is used for when a video is a primary focus on your page. So when you really want to tell search engines that this video has great importance and value to users, you wouldn't want to do it for videos that are just small little clips that are just to help kind of from more of an aesthetic standpoint. These are more for the informational videos that you have. Article schema is for blog posts, news articles, press releases. It helps Google understand that these pages are more informational than transactional. So these you wouldn't see article schema on something like a product page. Breadcrumb list is the last one on there. This can be used on several different types of pages. The main purpose of it is just to help users understand how far into your site they are, and also just indicate a page's position in your site's hierarchy. So that's going to help search engines understand your site's hierarchy a little better as well. And this could be things like you might have breadcrumb list on a product page where under the women's category on your site, you have a shoes category and then a specific pair of sneakers. So that breadcrumb list is going to let you know that the sneakers are within 2 more categories on that site.
Yeah. And also, Jill, fair to say that any business, they can have multiple different types of schema at once.
Yes. Yeah, you can have multiple different types of schema. Depending on the page, you might have several different schemas in place at the same time.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's get into rich results, because this can be a huge impact on SEO. Why don't you break down what are Google rich results and how can websites take advantage?
So this is a main benefit of schema, is that you'll be able to see your results in search results a lot better, or just have more value than they normally do. So for example, there's 3 examples in there. The Amazon.com example on the left, that has organization schema, where if you implement organization schema and you search for Amazon, you'll see a whole blurb about their company on the right-hand side, and you'll be able to see all of that information about the company. That has a lot to do with just making sure that Google is able to receive that information easily, and that comes through Schema. The second one on there is Best Buy. So you'll be able to see at the bottom there that they have store reviews on there. You'll be able to see the prices for those headphones on there. It shows that they have free delivery, and it even shows information on returns. So that's a lot of more product specific information that before users even go into your site, they'll be able to see a lot of information that might even push them to click on that. And they wouldn't necessarily click on that if they hadn't seen that information. So if users are seeing a lot of reviews on their site, they're more likely to click in. The last one on there is an example of breadcrumb schema. So you'll be able to see on the bottom that there's actually subsections within that long blog article about schema markup, where you'll be able to click into those sections specifically.
Awesome. Yeah, and click-through rate is such a insanely helpful part of SEO, and by having Google's rich snippets, definitely gonna, as Jill mentioned, it's going to help increase your click-through rate. By increasing your click-through rate, you're just, by nature of definition of click-through rate, you're just going to get a lot more clicks. But also, Google and the search engines take notice. So when folks are clicking on your listings much more frequently, they're going to say that, okay, they're providing something of value. I'm going to rank them higher and higher up. So it can really help out in a lot of different ways. So thanks for sharing that. Now, let's say someone implements some markup through a developer. How do they check to make sure that schema is set up correctly?
So on that slide, there's two different options that you can use to check schema. And these are the best tools. There's definitely a lot of tools out there that you could use. That one on the left-hand side for Google's Rich Results tool. Google's Rich Results tool, it's able to show you how your pages are going to appear in search results, how those rich results are going to look based on that schema. So you'll be able to review all of that information in there. If you want to check, however, if your schema is working properly, if the code is written correctly, that's when you'd rather use schema.org. They have a validator on there. This validate tool, you'll be able to see the code listed out, and it'll show you subsections on the right-hand side of that, where you'll be able to even break down the types of schema that it's recognizing through that code.
Yep. And these tools are all free, right?
Yes, both free tools, very easy to use. The validate tool for schema.org, you're able to either post a URL, a live URL in there, or you can even post the entire code in there.
Yep. And for folks that have businesses, have websites, you may not even know if you have schema on or not. So even if you're not implementing today, you just want to see what's on, pop in your URL into either of these tools, and you'll be able to see where you currently have, is it schema marked up correctly, or what you're missing, so that way you can put together a plan moving forward. So does schema impact SEO? What do you think, Jill?
It does, and it has some great benefits if it's implemented correctly. So the biggest one is that it makes it really clear to Google and Bing. They'll just be able to understand the page's content better. They'll be able to clarify important information that you want to highlight on that page. It's really going to help get the purpose of your pages across, whether it's informational page, a transactional page, or a commercial page. It's also going to help increase visibility. So search engines that understand your page better will be able to rank them better in organic search results. It also helps become more engaging to users. So it's going to create those rich results that are going to lead to a higher click-through rate. And then in addition, so for the click-through rate, it's just going to be able to help to have more information for users before they even click into your site. So like I was mentioning before with that Best Buy example, when you see a lot of reviews before you even have to click into a site, it might be the reason that some users are going to click in.
Yep, absolutely. And also just a reminder to everyone who's listening, this is a language agreed upon by the search engines. Like everyone, they agreed upon this language as the easy way to really better understand what this site is all about and services. So definitely fill this out. Anytime you give Google information on a platter of what your site's about, it's definitely going to help you out. And of course, any of those engagement signals, super helpful. And yeah, as you mentioned, it can also pre-qualify some of the traffic, where if they like what they see in the listings on Google, they're going to click, and more likely than not, they're going to have a better conversion rate on your website. What are some of the schema best practices that folks should take into consideration?
So the first one on there is just not to overuse schema. So schema should really be reserved for highlighting the primary element or purpose of the content on a web page. If you have too much schema, it can get kind of confusing. It may not be implemented correctly. There's a lot more risk that could happen there that could do more harm than good to your site. So the primary purpose or primary element schema could include, for a product page example, again, the price, delivery time, whether it's in stock or not. Those are all things that users will want to know before they click into the site, and search engines will want to know that this is emphasizing that this is a product page. Monitoring performance is another great one. So just making sure that after you've implemented schema, if you're looking at the impact on search visibility and click-through rate, you'll be able to see whether that schema is working or not. Making sure that you either understand schema structured data markup or schema markup, or have help from a web developer on there, just to make sure that it's implemented properly. And then leveraging different types of schema. So like we mentioned before, there's a lot of different types of schema that can be used. There's no one type fits all when it comes to schema. Each page is going to have a different markup than the next. A blog post is going to have different schema markup than a product page. So you'll want to have a great understanding of how to use those different types and how you can leverage those to your benefit on your site. And the last one is a pretty simple one, but just making sure that when you're writing schema markup, save it in some sort of a folder, whether it's a Word document or a Google Doc, something on your computer. It's the easiest way for you to refer back to your schema markup after you've implemented it. If there's anything down the road that needs to be fixed or adjusted, you'll be able to easily see it. And that will be the best way to just make quick adjustments.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a easy one. Just save all the coding and language on a Google Doc somewhere, because you may not do schema again for another year or so, and then you're going to have to jog your memory of like, wait, how did this work? Or maybe you'll have a developer on your site. It's like, hey, what's all this schema code about? And then you could reference that. So super helpful. But yeah, getting back to recommendations that you shared earlier, Jill, is have a developer implement schema. You could DIY it, but you put yourself at somewhat of risk, and you're not going to be sure if you really implement it correctly, which really leads us to our last slide. Anyone who is watching this and you need help either assessing schema, hey, what kind of schema do I have on my site, and do a gap analysis of what type of schema can I place on my site, we can do that assessment for you. We can also help implement based off of, depending on what platform you're on. If you're on WordPress, absolutely. But feel free to contact us, risemkg.com. Jill, thank you so much for demystifying all things schema. I know it's a heavy topic, but it's worth us getting into it just because there is a lot of upside for SEO. So really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
And for anyone who's listening, if you're watching us on YouTube, go to our channel, make sure you subscribe, because every other week we're pushing out more and more content with these bi-weekly webinars. So until next time, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us at risemkg.com. Thank you.